Judy, I never considered ourselves big drinkers or partiers back in high school. But now when we're looking back on stuff, it's kind of like, we did a little bit of drinking, we did a little bit of partying, and we've got some kind of crazy stories.
Yeah, and one thing that's kind of interesting about that is I also would say we weren't big partiers, big drinkers. But in North Dakota, you also didn't have access to a lot of other things, and certainly not access to things that people have access to today, which thank goodness. But it was almost a game to see who could get away with the most. And for some reason, for some crazy reason, we thought looking older was a compliment and a ticket to paradise.
We got a couple of stories where when we made ourselves look a little bit older, we were able to pull off some stuff. But Judy, I agree. Back in the day, you wanted to hang out, you wanted to go out and do stuff. And then guess what? Almost every scenario like that had alcohol or not a lot of drugs, but, mostly alcohol. So again, not a lot of drinking, not a lot of partying. But when we did it, I think we kind of came off the rails a little bit. A couple of the stories are a little bit crazy. And I'm going to start. I've got one that, if you remember, I worked at Jerry's Standard, which is the gas station. We've referenced that in earlier podcasts. What happened?
Poor Jerry. Poor Jerry.
Judy, the gas station I got fired from. I'm working at Jerry's Standard. It's a Friday. I want to go get some alcohol. I thought that to make me look older, that would put me in a position where I could buy some alcohol. Well, I'm at the gas station doing oil changes, doing pumping gas and cleaning windows and all that kind of stuff. And I've got the real nice Jerry Standard shirt on. Makes me look maybe not 17, maybe it makes me look 18 or 19. Well, my thought was, hey, let me rub some oil, some grease on my face, and just make it look like I've been under the car all day, working hard. Not just doing oil changes. I'm doing something big, like maybe a transmission or something. I don't, you can tell my car knowledge is zero.
Well, and again, the rule, don't let them near your car. There's a rule about that.
So I got all the oil on. I got, the grease on my face. It's been a hot, sweaty, long day. I think it's summertime. And I drive over to a liquor store that's over kind of just past the fairgrounds a little bit. And I go in there and I buy booze. And guess what, Judy? It worked. It worked. I got away with it. I bought booze. I get up to the counter. The guy rings me up, didn't ask for an ID. Looks like I'm, just been an automotive, animal all day working on cars. And now I'm just rewarding myself with a little bit of alcohol. And he said, have a good day. And I did the you betcha. And well, Judy, the back end of the story didn't go well. I got in trouble. And somehow it came back to Dad that I was the one that showed up with booze. So Dad's grilling me. And again, Dad's a detective, Minot Police Department, captain, lie detector, police hypnotist. He's got everything going. I've got nothing going. So when Dad starts playing good and bad cop to me at the same time, I got to confess. And at one point he's like, so where'd you get the booze? Tell me where you got it. And I folded like a cheap tent, like a cheap suit, Judy. I was like, I went and drove to the liquor store. And Dad's like, oh, they let you buy booze? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, what liquor store? And then all of a sudden I kind of started seeing where this was going.
Oh, yeah.
And not a good place. So anyway, this all ends, Judy, with me having to go down to the Minot Police Department and giving a statement and signing an affidavit that I bought booze from this liquor store. So, we've talked about a couple of other scenarios out there where I did that undercover sting thing for Applebee's, and I referenced that, hey, usually I'm the person that's getting stung by the sting. And, this is a scenario now because I got in trouble buying booze underage at this liquor store. Now this liquor store, and I don't know whatever happened if they actually got their hands slapped. But again, Judy, how many 17-year-olds are sitting in the Minot Police Department giving a written statement? Yeah, I bought booze last night.
Singing like a bird.
Yeah.
Singing like a bird. Yeah. And it's funny because I think people probably wouldn't be surprised if there was a picture of you and it says anything that you see this guy coming, shutter your businesses, shutter your homes because something bad is going to happen.
Judy, when I'm coming to town, the hurricane warnings go out.
Yeah, totally.
There's a storm coming, and it's Donny, and it does not have a good ending most of the time.
I also had a fascination with trying to buy alcohol underage. And by the way, we do not condone any of this behavior. We do not advocate it. It's a warning. Don't try this at home. We were just a bunch of idiots at the time.
By the way, we're still idiots. We're
Yeah,
just
we
now
are.
we're adult
Idiotics. Yep,
idiots.
totally. I was 13, which you're like, oh my God, she's 13. What did she do at 13? But I will say at 13, I was a freshman in high school, and I actually thought that I looked much older. And I had longer hair then. I actually had curly hair. Wasn't quite Kate Jackson hair, but it was kind of curly. But anyway, I thought if I get all gussied up and I make myself look super sophisticated and I'm putting lipstick on so pretty, you know what I mean? And then I had this suit that I got, this like cool little outfit that I got. I don't even know where I got it. But I also had these long, long boots that were just under my knees. They zipped up on the side. I'm like, I'm going to put those on and I'm going to go try to make the liquor store. Well, I'm like, let me go try and make a liquor store. That happened to be one of the ones that my friend Candy's dad owned. I'm like, I know, stupid, stupid, stupid. So anyway, I'm like, all right, I'm going to go to that liquor store. I'm going to try. And then because I'm so sophisticated, I have all this lipstick, the car's running outside waiting for my big purchase. I put my 3 bottles of TJ Swann.
Wow.
I know, not
That brings back memories.
It does, but hello, it screams underage idiot. So anyway, I get these three bottles of TJ Swann on the counter, and I'm looking at the guy, and he's looking at me and just like staring at me, like you jackass. So anyway, I'm sitting there. I'm like, well, So let me get some gum. I see some gum over there. I start adding some packs of gum to the counter, thinking that will do it. So then he looks and he says, ID, please. And I'm like, you know what? I don't think I have it on me. I think I'm gonna have to go out to hello. Everybody says this. So then I go running and I go running in my fancy boots and I run in the car. Drive. I got nothing. So anyway, I got denied. I didn't get anything.
The
That
getaway
wasn't
car.
Yeah, totally. But that wasn't the end of the story. I thought, okay, this was my big attempt. I failed, even though I thought I looked like I was at least 25. I go to our mom and dad had a store at the time. I go to the store the next day, and dad says, well, what were you doing last night? And I know you referenced that he was bad cop, bad cop. It is like bad cop, bad cop, bad cop. Everybody's like, so I got a call from so-and-so who owns this liquor store. And he said, you would not believe what happened. Your daughter came in here and she was all gussied up and all dressed up with these boots. He's describing my outfit to a T and said, hey, she was trying to buy booze. So then I got the infamous, God damn it, you're grounded. So I got busted the first time I ever tried to go buy booze at age 13.
We got busted a lot, and if it wasn't somebody tattling on us from the outside, it was just our own internal doings, or it was showing up at the house. There's a thing that I like to talk about called glow and sniff. And the glow is, Judy, when we got home on a Friday or Saturday night, and we had an early curfew, we've talked about that. We had an 11 o'clock curfew. Well, a lot of the times when we came home, or if we were late, we'd show up, all the lights would be off in the house, but you'd see the glow in the front window. And it was the glow of the cherry of the cigarette that Dad was smoking. You knew that meant he was sitting there
In the
waiting.
dark. Yes, in the dark.
And he's waiting to go to bed. He's waiting for us to get home. But he's also kind of waiting to be the bad cop and bust us. And that gets to the second part of the glow and sniff. The sniff was the sniff test. And I hated that. I don't like anybody being in my face anyway. To this day, get out of my face. You're too close. Dad would get right up in my face and say, let me smell your breath. And Judy, we weren't allowed back in the day to have one beer.
Nothing.
We had a lot of friends that we could go out as long as they were responsible. It was kind of weird that, maybe their parents let them get away with it. Or we had a couple of friends where if the kids stayed at home, the parents sometimes would buy them some beer or let them drink a little bit of alcohol if they stayed home and were responsible. That was not us. I think I might remember one New Year's Eve where mom or dad said, hey, do you want a sip of this champagne? And it was literally, you got to sniff it and sip just a tiny bit.
Also, just because of his job, right? He couldn't do that. Did you ever get threatened with the lie detector?
I did get threatened with the lie
Mhm.
detector. The lie detector was literally in the room next to my room, so it
Oh,
wasn't a long trek. I mean, it wasn't like, hey, let's go down to the police station and take the lie detector. It's let's go pop into the spare bedroom and get you hooked up to this machine. Honestly, in all the years that the lie detector was in our house, in all the years that I was bad and sometimes lying, I never, despite getting threatened to get hooked up to it, he never actually went through with it. That's kind of one little saving grace about the lie detector is it was a warning and it was a threat. It was always there, but it was kind of like, I think that maybe, I don't know, maybe Dad would have gotten in trouble if all of a sudden, the police found out that, oh, he's hooking
totally.
up, he's hooking
Yes.
up the kids.
I remember him threatening that too. What'd you do tonight? Blah, blah, blah. Where were you? Well, let's go the next room and I'll hook you up to the lie detector. Nobody wanted to have that. And I remember saying, that's not fair. Nobody else's dad gets to run a lie detector. That's not even a fair playing field.
To your point, the lie detector was a tool that Dad used to kind of threaten us or manage us, I guess, if you will. And again, it was just a scary thing to have in the room. But back to the sniff thing real quick. I got to tell you one scenario where I thought I beat the sniff test or I thought I was getting away with it. And it was a Friday night. I'm out, again, the 10 or 11 o'clock curfew, and I'm running home from, I don't know, some other part of town. That was kind of the way I would kind of not sober up, but kind of clean up and clear up. And if I smelled like smoke or smelled like booze, I thought if I did that 1.5 mile jog home, that would get rid of whatever bad element that I had going on. I get home on a Friday night. I'm actually early. It's like 10:30. And I'm thinking, okay, this is a good thing. Donnie's coming home early. Next good thing is nobody's at home. I come in the house. Everybody's gone. Mom and Dad are gone. You were out with Mom and Dad. And I think you guys ended up going to like Dairy Queen or something on a Friday night, late at night, like 9 or 10 o'clock, and we're just hanging out. Well, I get home at 10:30 that night, a little bit tipsy. And again, I had jogged home from a party. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm golden. I am golden. There's no sniff test. There's no sniff test tonight. I'm getting away with it. So, Judy, what do I do? And this is probably my fatal mistake. What do I do? I go to bed. You think going to bed might be a good thing? Not in our house. You go to bed early, that's a warning sign. So what happened is I go to bed, and again, a little bit tipsy. I probably immediately pass out or fall asleep. Well, 20 minutes later, you guys all come home, and I hear from the top of the stairs, Mom, Donnie, are you home? And I'm like all groggy, and then I heard Mom saying, Don, go check on Donnie. And I'm like, uh-oh. So I have to pop out of bed downstairs. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is now this area that I didn't want this to get into. Dad's coming down to check on me. And he's probably wondering why Donnie's in bed. Well, I jump out of bed and I kind of meet him at the door. And he's like, so when'd you get home? And I'm like, well, half hour ago, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, you in bed early? And I'm like, yeah, I was tired. And he's like, you been drinking? That was Dad's thing. Do you drink anything tonight? Right away. No. Are you sure? Yeah. I'm sure. Let me smell your breath. And apparently I still had the smell of beer or alcohol. And it was beer back in the day, but I still had that on my breath. Immediately got grounded. So here's a scenario, Judy. Jog home, clear out, clean up, get home. Nobody's home. No sniff test. Donnie's going to be golden. No. There's, the back end of that, didn't end well.
Yeah, that glow and sniff was very real, and the glow was a thing. I remember coming home one time, and I had to do the sniff test too. And then our mom's like, where were you tonight? And I'm like, oh, just driving around, whatever. Then she's like, did you go to the liquor store? And no. She's like, you weren't at the liquor store? She goes, somebody called and said they saw you at the liquor store. And I'm like, I wasn't at the liquor store. I was not at the liquor store. Anyway, she had me convinced that I was at a liquor store that I actually wasn't on. So I confessed to something that I didn't even do, and I get grounded. True story, wasn't at a liquor store, but ended up believing that I was there. She should have been one of those people that, would interrogate spies or something, because she did a great job.
It's easier to say, yeah, I did it. Even though you had nothing to do with it. How crazy. Hey, real quick, I want to do one quick fast forward off this because everybody's going to think Mom and Dad were super strict with us. on drinking and all that kind of stuff. And they were. We've talked about it, and we've still got a couple more stories to go. Judy, do you remember later when we lived on our own, we would get care packages from our mom and dad?
Yes.
And the care packages, if they mailed them, would contain cigarettes. So
Yes.
mom
Mine
and
too.
dad, my mom, I've been living in Minneapolis, and I'd get a care package in the mail, and there'd be a carton of cigarettes. And I'm like, wow, when did mom and dad get super cool? And then they didn't mail it, but when they delivered the care package, and again, I was still underage, drinking's 21, but when they delivered the care package, she thought it was a cool thing that maybe I can get Donny into drinking some wine. And so she would bring me a couple of bottles of wine. Again, I'm living in Gillette, Wyoming at the time, first job in radio, 19 years old, and I'm drinking on a Friday night wine that was delivered to me by mom and dad. But those care packages were amazing because they had food in them, they had snacks in them, they'd have a couple of little lifeline things in them, maybe a $20 bill, but
Yes, like you
always.
won something. They would come when I moved to Bismarck, and I know I mentioned that I moved out right after I turned 17. They would bring me like 4 cartons of cigarettes, fill up my freezer with cigarettes, which was really nice. Cigarettes and ribeye steaks is what I would get. Ribeye steaks. Now, the
I didn't
wine for
get
you,
that.
I think you went to Minneapolis, so I'm like, you're not getting that, or Gillette. But I would get ribeye steaks and not one, like I said, it was like 4 cartons of cigarettes. It was crazy. And it's weird that she would bring you wine. I want it. Wow, obvious with the mug there, but okay. So
Hey, we've got merch, just saying.
it's crazy that with the wine, because both our parents barely drank. It was a little weird that they brought you the wine. One thing that I will say, so going back to this obsession about being underage, and sometimes it was almost a game to see what you could get and get away with. So right after I moved to Bismarck, right around the corner from the place that I lived at that old governor's mansion type place, there was a liquor store. Across from the liquor store was a cop car watching to see who was going in the liquor store. That was a big thing for police in the 70s, and in North Dakota, there's not a lot of crime. So they're scoping out who is going into the liquor store, but I will not be deterred. So I go into the liquor store and I said to the guy, hey, FYI, you got a cop out there looking to see everybody who's coming in here. So you probably should be checking IDs. Make sure you check everybody's ID. So I grab my 6-pack of beer. I go up to the counter, pay, and I leave the store. He said, thanks for the heads up, too.
And didn't ID you?
No, did not
Oh.
ID me because I gave him a
my
heads
God.
up. So, yeah, isn't that nuts?
Funny. That's something, again, that you would see in a movie about the criminals outsmarting the cops by letting them know that they know that something's going on.
Bismarck was really interesting, and I don't think I ever really was super laser focused on underage drinking until I moved out. And again, I know I mentioned before that I had a curfew. They thought they could give me a curfew, our parents, when I moved out, which was weird. Like, hey, you're going to be home at midnight or whatever.
That's a long leash.
It's a really long leash. Anyway, I'm trying to get into another bar down there, and I had a fake ID. But the guy says to me, the bouncer out front, he's like, normally I'd let you in here. He goes, but half of the Bismarck Police Department's out here tonight, and they're in the bar. And I'm like, I said, my dad works for the Bismarck Police Department, which wasn't true. He didn't work for the Bismarck Police Department. But I said, he's in there. And the guy's like, well, go on in. So let me right in there.
Judy, there's another story I've got where I actually did get away. I shouldn't have gotten away with anything. There was no glow. There was no sniff. And it was working late night at Taco John's. I think it was my senior year in high school. And we started getting not freedom, but I think just the leash got loosened just a little bit on us. Well, I had a buddy of mine that would come by late at night at Taco John's. And this guy would say, hey, why don't you make us some tacos? Let's go do some midnight bowling and, some drinking. And we did all of that. But this was at midnight. This is like 1 or 2 in the morning.
Yes.
I made the tacos. We went up to the bowling alley. Can't remember if we actually bowled, but I remember us watching TV. And Judy, it's 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. This is not going to go well. Why is Donny getting home so late? When we came home late at night, if there was not the glow in the window, Mom would hear you coming in. She'd ask, who is that? What is that? And you'd have to answer.
Yes.
So there was no really kind of sneaking in the house. Well, anyway, I get home at about 4 in the morning and nobody's there. It's like another Dairy Queen. I think you guys are there, Mom and Dad are not there. Hey, where is everybody? Our grandpa had taken a turn for the worse. He was in the hospital down in Bismarck, and Mom and Dad decided to make the drive down to Bismarck to be with them that night. And I don't know if that was his final night or if he died that weekend or it was pretty close to the end. But Judy, a scenario where I get home at 4 o'clock in the morning, buzzed on a school night, and nobody's there to bust me. No glow, no sniff. Donnie's golden. So, well, do you think I'm going to go to school that morning after getting home at 4 in the morning? To hell with that. I'm not going to school. I'm sleeping in. Well, it's about 7 o'clock in the morning, and I probably had went to bed about 4:30 or 5, so I'm about 2 hours in. About 7 o'clock in the morning, all of a sudden I hear, Donnie, the phone's for you. And I'm like, phone's for me? It's 7 o'clock in the morning? And I get on the phone. It's Dad. What are you doing? Are you still in bed? Get your ass up. You're going to school. Get ready. And I'm like, okay. So I had to get up on like 2 hours sleep and go to school. And it was one of those school days where I'm in photography class or whatever class, and I am just struggling to keep my eyes open because I was out all night partying with a schoolmate, and we were drinking till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning.
So I would go up there after work, similar to you. And I think it was kind of by your bowling alley that you went to. Yeah, we were having pizza. She was making drinks up there. Life was good. And we never really got questioned too much in those middle of the night excursions. It was always more, we got busted when there was a curfew. Totally random. Fast forward for me for 2 minutes. I have to tell you this. This is when I was much older. I was actually living in a different city in Colorado. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm driving home and I get pulled over. The cop's like, "You been drinking?" And I'm like, "No." And what's crazy is I wasn't drinking. And he goes, "You haven't had anything to drink?" I said, "No." And then he asked me what I did. And he's like, "Oh, so you went to college and you did this and that." And I'm like, "Yep, not an idiot, clown, let me go." So he's like, "Well, I'm going to have you do a roadside sobriety test." And I'm like, "What? I have to do a sobriety test. I haven't been doing anything." He says, "I want you to take 9 steps forward, kind of heel to toe, 9 steps back, heel to toe." I'm like, "Okay, I did that." And then he's like, "I want you to lean back, touch your nose," which, by the way, I had a friend one time that touched the cop's nose in that part. Didn't end well for her.
Never a good thing to touch the cop's nose.
Don't be touching the cop's nose. That's just stupid. But I have to, it reminds me of something else funny. But I had so I had to do this little thing and you're leaning back and doing that. And then he says, "I want you to do the alphabet." He goes, "You know how to do the alphabet?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not an idiot. Went to college." So thought I was all in. And I said, "How I do?" And he said, "You failed everything." I said, "What?" I said, "You're kidding." And he goes, "I need you to do the breathalyzer." I do the breathalyzer and I blow a 000. It's everything's goose eggs. So anyway, he looks at me. I said, "What did I fail?" Yeah, on the steps. He goes, "Well, you did 10 forward, 8 back." I'm like, "Still 18. Then I guess I had a sway, you know what I mean? When I was doing this. And then I forgot the W in the alphabet.
Judy, those field sobriety tests, I've never had to take one, but I hear that they're a little bit tricky and a little bit hard.
Well, I'll own it. I was an idiot.
Judy, I got to tell you real quick about prom. My senior year, another drinking escapade. And I went to prom with, and again, we're not mentioning names. I think everybody knows who we're talking about. I dated her a little bit in high school, but went to prom with her senior year. And we went out and everybody, for some reason, is excited about prom. Our parents, especially her dad. And I picked her up. She's got the prom dress on. And we actually drove to the outskirts of town somewhere. And we might have picked up your drink of choice, a little bit of TJ Swann, and had something to drink, or a slow gin fizz or whatever was kind of popular back in the day. We proceeded to drink a little bit too much while we're just parked out in the country. And that's all we were doing. We weren't being goofy or anything kind of weird beyond that, but we're just having a good time and maybe getting a little bit out of control. Well, while this is happening, everybody's at Minot High at Magic City campus waiting and with their cameras to watch the grand entrance, the grand march. Mom and Dad are there. Dad's there with his camera. Her dad's there. He's got his camera. We completely miss the grand march, which we didn't think it was that big of a deal. I didn't realize that Mom and Dad are going to be like, "Oh, this is a great photo opportunity. Let's go down and get the kids." At prom, we're out on the outskirts of town. not being good kids, missing the Grand March. And then I remember going back to mom and dad's house later, and her and I walked in, and it was still fairly early. I think it was like 8:30 or 9, and we're still going to go over to prom. We just had missed the beginning part of prom, stopping by the house to say hi to the folks, again, while we're maybe a little bit buzzed. And then all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose because dad and mom are furious about us having missed the Grand March. And
Yeah.
that became like a big thing.
And when you were out in the country, that wasn't why they invented the expression, off like a prom dress.
No, no. Remember, Judy, Dad had not talked to me about the birds and the bees yet.
That's
That
right. He
came
wanted to
years
wait till you were
later.
in your 20s.
Yeah, there was no off with the prom dress. There might have been a little bit of TJ Swann or Slow Gin Fizz spilled on this prom dress, but that's it. This wasn't a Monica Lewinsky story.
Well, I'm going to go back to Bismarck because I have to say, it was kind of the time of my life where I felt like an adult that I got to do all these things, even though I was 17. It's like I had freedom. I could go to the bars. I had a fake ID. I had a liquor store lined up right around the corner. But my favorite bar, I remember I would go in there all the time. I went in there all the time, underage, 17. So anyway, I'm in there, and again, like I mentioned earlier, the cops loved to raid bars and liquor stores and look for underage drinking. So anyway, I am in the bar, and I have my head down for a second, and I look up, and there's cops coming in every entrance. Like they're coming in from everywhere. And the first place they
Raid!
Yes, yes. So your natural instinct is to kind of beeline it to the bathroom.
Run!
However, yes, that's my thing, run. And I'm like, but there was no place to go, not the bathroom. You can't run out the door. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I actually think I was on probation for driving around with a keg in the back one other time. But anyway, the whole other story. But in this particular instance, I'm like, what am I going to do? I can't get busted. So what do? I see a tray. I go start picking up drinks from people, empty glasses, 17, because they're all like, hey, thanks for helping, whatever, and I'm like, yeah, no problem. So the next weekend, I'm sitting at the bouncer station checking IDs.
Judy, you went from underage drinking, the cops are raiding the place,
Yep.
nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. You pick up a tray, you pretend you're working there, and then the next week, you are working there.
Except I wasn't getting paid, kind of like Kramer. Donny, we're getting ready to wrap up season 1. I'm super excited. And again, it's always a theme of chaos going on. That continues. And how we interpreted things sometimes with our dad being a cop and having that German mom. More to come.